Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Behavior just opened up its PTB for its most recent chapter, End Transmission, featuring a new killer called the Singularity and a new survivor called Gabriel Soma. It's been one of my favorite PTBs in a really long time, so I thought I would share my thoughts on it. I'll be addressing my main concerns, but to be honest, this is a really well-designed chapter that, aside from the perk adjustments and counterplays with Singularity, I love the duo that Behavior has crafted, and it's made for a PTB that I actually stayed on and enjoyed. The map that comes with the chapter, Toba's Landing, is another story altogether and will be what I'm addressing first. The map itself is gorgeous, well drawn out, and just a visually stunning map, but unfortunately this doesn't always mean it's a great map to play DBD on. Maps should be a good size, not too big for 110 killers to feel overwhelmed, but not too small to where survivors feel cramped and forced into easily shut down loops and feel helpless. The map itself isn't as big as Mother's Dwelling, but is a spacious map with a cluttered design and is a nightmare for killers like Billy, Blight, or Oni. There's a weird pick and choose rate between the foliage for what has collision and what doesn't, and a lot of the line of sight breakers means killers like Trickster or Huntress will have a hard time using their power, but the size means that they have a hard time actually catching up and chase. The map is full of great nooks and crannies, and with a couple of interesting loops spread out. One of the things that I do like about the map is that it's not full of filler palettes like the new Mother's Dwelling or Temple of Purgation. I've noticed in Behavior's design plan that filler palettes are being chosen as a balancing mechanic, but it's more of a nightmarish design than it is a balanced one. Borgo is another map evident of this. The color scheme also makes tracking difficult, especially for those with poor vision. Maps like Autohaven or Macmillan are contrasting to scratch marks, making tracking easier. Recent maps like Erie, Borgo, and now Toba's Landing allow scratch marks to blend in, making tracking injured survivors nightmarish, especially for ranged killers. While I don't see this map getting changed anytime soon, as evident of Garden of Joy from last year's anniversary chapter, I do hope that the two other maps that Behavior has planned, as well as the Cold Wind and alleged Swamp reworks on the Year 8 map, that they take a page out of a completely different book and make a manageable sized map with a handful of interesting loops that aren't killer's nightmare. For the Singularity, this is one of my favorite designs for a killer in a really long time. From a body horror to a futuristic sci-fi aspects, he's a visually stunning creature and is just so fresh to see from Behavior. The Dredge is another one of my favorite killer designs, and I love when Behavior's character artists get to use organic shapes in their features, so I can't wait to see what cosmetics come out for him in the future. His power is one that is simple on paper but is difficult to use in-game, but that's not a bad thing. I believe that there should be killers with a high skill ceiling, but designed in a way that is satisfying to use, but isn't nightmarish to go up against. His biopods can be used to gather both information and to catch up with survivors in chase, and it's just very refreshing to see compared to the most recent chapters. Despite having a camera system that would suggest a 3-gen killer, I very rarely saw killers lead into this aspect on the PTB, since the biopods gave such an advantage in chase with his overclock mode. Being able to have a quicker vault speed, quicker braking animation, and also just to tap into a resource every time you teleport is really fun to use, but is also easily oppressive. I do find that there is an issue when teleporting in chase with a survivor having a meatball on their back, since it doesn't go away. Once they're tagged until an EMP clears it or they're hooked, which makes sense to a point, but in a chase you can just teleport an infinite amount of times, constantly being overclocked and burning through chase resources. Ideally, you'd shut down the chase really quick, but it does bode an issue that you can just keep teleporting. The counterplay for the meatballs, obviously being readily available, but much too much so, are EMPs. These are available in a Wesker and Nemi-style case where survivors are able to pick up an EMP, disable your biopods and the meatballs on their back at will. This is damning for the Singularity since they are almost too easily usable, but since the meatballs on the survivor's back spread, it's a counterplay that might be a little bit too hard to balance. The dome of the EMPs is too wide in my opinion, especially for maps like Midwich or Ricker's Yard that are on the smaller side. I would like to see a decrease for live servers, especially if the EMP stays easy to pick up as they are in the PTB. While not powerful, the perks are interesting, and I always like when perks extend beyond just gen regression. Genetic limits inflicts the exhausted status effect whenever a survivor finishes a healing action, and this was really noticeable on the PTB, especially when many of us are running Gabriel's Made For It perk. Forced hesitation pairs really well with infectious fright as it hinders survivors within 16 meters of a recently downed survivor. And machine learning is the most interesting as it actually encourages a killer to allow survivors to do gens to gain value. After damaging 2 gens, the most recent one becomes compromised, and when that gen is completed, you are undetectable and move 7% faster for 30 seconds. This is especially fun for killers like Pig, since we have an easier time interrupting survivors who are doing bear traps or sneaking up on the survivors who aren't busy getting a party chop off their head. For these perks, I can't see much getting changed from the PTB to live, nor is there much that I want changed. I could see Behavior adjusting the length of the exhausted status effect for genetic limits, possibly down to 25 seconds from 32, since survivors are constantly healing rather than perks like Blood Echo, where a killer has to hook someone to see effects. Overall, I would give the Singularity a 9 out of 10. He's an absolute delight to play, but I would like to see Behavior adjust the EMPs upon release. The overclock mode is another adjustment, as pairing the killer with Enduring means that stunning is basically useless, especially because there is base kit and Fury when you're in overclock mode. And finally, Gabriel Soma. Gabriel is a really well-designed survivor with interesting lore. Since the survivors are technically recolors of the same role, I always enjoy when behavior gets creative with their lore, and it was fascinating to read about the colonization of Darka, as well as how the singularity came to be from Gabriel's perspective. His feel, design, and inclusivity is a 10 out of 10 for me, and I can't wait to see his cosmetics, same with the singularity. For his perks, this is definitely a case of where behavior is wanting to test the limits of what they think we're okay with. Each perk is stronger than the last and is definitely in need of balancing upon release. But I do enjoy when things are broken on the PTB, so I don't mind it initially. Troubleshooter is reminiscent of Quick Gambit from Victoria's chapter, allowing survivors to see the gen with the most progress while in chase. But the secondary effect is what I have an issue with. Upon throwing a pallet, the killer's aura is revealed to you for 6 seconds. This encourages survivors to pre-drop pallets and removes a lot of mind gaming from the killer's perspective, which is damning for M1 killers like Ghostface or Trapper, or even rage killers like Huntress who use it to line up a shot. I would like to see this effect shortened to 4 seconds, or if it stays 6 seconds, to only be applied when stunning a killer. It's an effect that should be earned, especially since its sibling Dark Sense is only earned upon completing a gen. Made for this was the star of the PTB in my opinion, and is reminiscent of Dead Hard in the fact that you get to have a stronger effect in chase by fucking up. When injured, you gave the haste status effect indefinitely. Even though people say it's only 3%, it stacks way too well with perks like Hope, Blood Pact, and Power of 2. Plus, being 103 as a survivor hurts killers like Dustling or Huntress, since their 110 nature means that you need a layer of Bloodlust or 2 to catch up around many of the loops where their powers are rendered useless, especially on the new map. Its secondary effect is that once you heal a survivor, you are given the endurance status effect for 10 seconds, but thankfully it does not synergize with 4 people. I would like to see a cooldown or an earn timer on the haste effect if behavior is intent on keeping it. The endurance effect is very fun, however, and is cheeky to play with or go against. I do think that this is just 2 perks combined into one, and I would like to see it separated. Finally, Scavenger is a perk that has been getting a lot of attention on Twitter since it's technically a free build to last for a toolbox. After using a toolbox once, you will instantly gain it back once you complete 4 great skill checks. While the perk is deactivated after the toolbox is used for a second time, you can pair it with build to last, hyper focus, and stakeout to make for a very annoying gen jockey. I would like to see the skill check ceiling be heightened, requiring at least 6 or even 8 skill checks to be earned, but if they want to keep it at 4 skill checks to make it so that newer players can use it, I think that the toolbox should only be replenished by 75% rather than 100%. Overall, this was an amazing anniversary chapter in my opinion. From the chase and information aspect from the singularity to the refreshing survivor design and exciting perks, I really enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching my video, and I will see you all in the next one. He's so scrunkly! Look at how he's built!